turn this on.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to have Anne Rojo here with me today, and she's going to share a little bit about Gil Hedley's nerve tour. So, Anne, welcome.
Thank you.
So, first off, what led you to joining the nerve tour? Did you know of Gil beforehand, and have you taken any of his dissections?
Yes, actually, I met Gil early on in my Hellerwork career. I had the great pleasure of studying with him a couple times, and I did a long extensive here with him in Colorado, and where we, did a full dissection, and it was life-changing for me and practice changing for me. I learned so much. Gil has a very unique way of teaching anatomy and dissection. I had taken many dissection courses actually prior to meeting Gil, and working with him, he has such a reverence for the body and a way of supporting people in curiosity. His nature is not, I should say his egoic nature is just very accepting and very curious. And that curiosity really supported my own curiosity and my own vulnerability in the work. There's a vulnerability in studying with him that he's incredibly vulnerable and incredibly open to how different and unique each cadaver is, so that I'd rather call them a person, so that each person who has donated their tissue, at the time, it wasn't required to donate tissue. So our cadavers were often, some of them were just sort of John Does. But anyway, he just had a way of just bringing the humanity to the whole process. And again, the reverence to the process. And he also would bring in, he had a lot of books and texts out to look at sort of comparative anatomy, to look at the world around us and how nature mimics, or how humanity maybe mimics nature, okay, how our own anatomy mimics what our world. So yes, so I love working with him. Every student I have ever worked with, I recommend that they work with him. Yeah, because he's like I said, I've never met an anatomy teacher or dissection instructor like him before.
It makes me feel the space that's held when you're with a client is the same space held when you're with a cadaver or person that's donated their tissue. So that's a beautiful way of putting it.
Yes, yeah, he actually starts out with a ceremony to honor the people who have, who once embodied this physical existence, and yeah, and so it just completely changes the whole experience, I think. Because I've worked with the medical students, and I've talked to a lot of physicians who have, with their process of dissection, and it's completely different. So it almost sounds like they take they make it impersonal, and Gil actually chose to make it very personal. And in that, I feel like what happened because he did that is we actually got an incredible amount of work done in a short period of time. Like, it's amazing what happens in a week or two with him. just again, how much work you get done, because it's emotionally and physically challenging to do this kind of work. And but when your whole being is invited to be in the process, it makes such a huge difference, because it becomes personal. And for me, I could really see my body. I could see who I am underneath this outer layer of tissue. So yeah, it was really cool. I will never forget my time with Gil. So considering that, since I was in the lab with him to, I don't know, I couldn't remember what year the last time I worked with him was, but it's been at least 15 years. So, maybe even 20 years, probably 20. And then to go to the Nerve tour, yeah, it was the fact, it was as if in some ways no time had passed. And he's even more brilliant than before.
That's so beautiful, and how much heart and detail that you have from that long ago. So tell me a little bit about the Nerve tour and what you took away from it, and if it has changed anything in your practice now.
Yeah, I would say it definitely has. I remember a while back realizing, I've always known this at some level, but I think somehow, it started to present more in my practice with clients, but coming to the realization that I'm always touching nerve tissue. And there's so many nerves, and how to work nerves. And I've always, working on some of the larger nerves and working in the brachial plexus area. I mean, so many injuries happen there, right? And my own injuries that have happened in that area. I just have a lot of sensitivity and a curiosity for working in that area. And I think, so what happened for me during the Nerve tour is that I feel like I got affirmation for how I want to work with the nerves and how I do work with the nerves, and how I could work with the nerves better and maybe touch more consciously. I would say that's probably more accurate, is that being able to touch more consciously and more effectively meet that nerve tissue. Okay. So that was a really great takeaway. The work with the brain in the nerve, I'm looking at all these notes and I'm like, God, are these making sense? But I remember seeing all the work he was doing with the brain and the brain dissection, and it's just amazing. And the vagus nerve, there's so much stuff around the vagus nerve, and I feel like regarding the polyvagal system, that we have to remember that it's a theory, the polyvagal theory. And also one of the other things that really came clear to me, and this is related to polyvagal theory, but it's just that we are each learning, in our own self-regulation and in our own nerve healing and in our own adaptability or lack of adaptability, we are constantly changing. We have this ability, like I could really see more from a physical level how much possibility there is for change. based on seeing the nervous system in the way that he chose to dissect it. It was just really amazing. And the painstaking work it was to dissect the nervous system just, made me realize, wow, this is so much more incredible. And we barely scratched the surface about our nervous system. Two really cool things. So I think in some texts they don't show that the vagus nerve actually is in any of the tissues of the gut or part of the gut. And that wasn't true in this particular cadaver. There was part of the vagus nerve, and I can't remember exactly where in the intestine that it was, but it was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And the another thing that was really cool is, let's see if I can find it. Oh yeah, the spinal cord. I thought this was super cool because I also study continuum. And the spinal cord undulates inside the canal like a snake. I was like, oh my God, that's just too cool.
I gotta replay that video
Yeah.
of the undulating spine. Think about that.
Yeah, exactly, right. I mean, for anybody who had the honor of studying with Emily Conrad, and she was just so right on and so ahead of her time. So yeah, I mean, there were so many things to take away from the nerve tour. I really want to encourage people to do the nerve tour. I actually hope that Gil puts it together as coursework because I think that would be really helpful, especially for all of us who do soft tissue work. I also feel like at one point I just stopped taking notes because it was so much information. Like it was an amazing amount of information. And also, but in saying that, Gil presents in a way where he brings in, like he would bring in a piece of poetry, and it's typically something that he wrote. Every now and then, maybe something someone else wrote, but there would be sort of a way of, even though you're sitting in this classroom, right, with this video, and you're so removed from nature, right, and plus, nobody, us as body workers, we don't want to be sitting all the time. But he had a way of bringing us back to the nature. And again, and he's showing the slides and he's talking as he's showing the slides. But it really, honestly, it was easily 2 full days of information packed into, like, I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was 4 or 6 hours, something like that. I remember we had a little break. So anyway, that it's, I still feel like everyone should study with Gil Hedley. I feel like the way that he dissects the nerves, I don't know. I've never seen anyone dissect like this. I've also never dissected with anyone in the way that I dissected with Gil. Not that I have, like I've never, dissected with Tom Myers. I have with Todd Garcia when Todd Garcia was working with Gil. But other than that, I just, yeah, I have not met anyone who works like he does. I also want to say too that I feel like the experience was so profound for me, and I like dissection helped me as a practitioner because the books were very challenging for me to study anatomy. I always felt very stupid, and it just wasn't how I learned. Plus, when I touched a body, it never looked like what was in the book. It just never really made sense to me. So And then even so when I did go to early dissections, it helped a lot too. It helped with, when I went to these other medical type of dissections, but it was really with Gil that I could I felt like I could touch, like I could understand more clearly what I was touching. Okay. Like I had a reference for it in a way that I had never had a reference for it before. So yeah, I know.
It sounds so
It-
much like a integrative session, like you're up in your mind, you bring you back into the body. It's like a full and touches to the environment, and then you go internal. It's just, I mean, I've only seen his videos on YouTube and his website, and I think I can feel some of like a fraction of what you're talking about. So
Mhm.
that's so special. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope I answered your questions, and this interview helped with some of what you wanted. Um, I have a ton of notes, but I'm thinking, um, go take his class, I mean, it's what's really beautiful is his weapon. This isn't like a plug for Gil, or I don't know if it's supposed to be, I have no idea, but um, he offers a lot of free information because he really wants to give as much information away as he can afford to do, but it's totally worth it to do his annual subscription. It's really cheap to be able to go on and learn so much. And I think what I was saying before is like, and I kind of left off that train of thought is that after working with him, and I don't know how much desire I have to go into the cadaver lab again, not because I don't love it, because I do. And I think I will at some point maybe do that, but I learned so much, and I got so much from the process of really um, being in that process and in a whole different way that, um, yeah, I think I got what I needed from it. So, yeah. But I really admire the people who dedicate their life and go, day after day or year after year in the cadaver lab. Because it's interesting work. And it also is challenging, especially when you do it the way Gil does it, I think, because it's a very full body. Yeah, yeah. So,
Beautiful.
mm,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Do you have any other questions or anything?
Well, my personal curiosity,
Mm,
I really love asking practitioners, and maybe especially in tuned with the nerves as far as texture in your hand, but also the sensations that you feel. Do you feel like nerves have a different texture or sensation for you?
yeah, definitely. I really appreciated seeing, the nerve sheath, the way it moves. I also really appreciated when I saw in his, in his work to see the differentiation of movement between nerve and different tissue. Yeah, and so yes, I definitely feel it. In some areas more than others. What was really helpful for me to see was that lymph nodes, also the nerve and lymph nodes, which and lymph tissue, which totally makes sense because it's, the nerves or the lymph is in the adipose, right? So yeah, it was really cool to see that because the lymph system has become very important in my work also. I do a lot of work with the lymph and yeah. So,
So what do they feel like?
what do you mean, the nerves? It
Do you,
depends on well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna elaborate and say, like, is there like a melty or a electric spark or like a maybe a feeling that you feel where you're like, oh, nerve.
That's a great question. Let me just think about like something more obvious I would say that I can feel is if I'm working on a larger nerve and I can feel when there isn't that differentiation of movement. Okay. And when that outer casing has become very hard and more like it's more almost kind of brittle. Okay. So I want to get that differentiation of movement. I want there to be glide. Okay. Between that outer nerve sheath. Okay. And the actual nerve inside. So, yes. So that's so energetically, does it feel different? That's a good question. I mean, when I do energy work, yeah, I would say it does feel different, but I don't know that I'm as sensitive to it unless there's a problem. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So like if it's really like a major area where someone's got something going on and that nerve inflammation
Mhm.
will definitely have a stronger heat content
Mm.
typically, okay, energetically. And then to the touch, I can feel the inflammation around it. And then so I usually try and clear the inflammation around it, just doing a little lymph work, sometimes elevation, and then trying to get into the nerve when it feels like that tissue is not too sensitive to work. So
Mhm.
I hope that answers your question.
It does. And
Okay.
then last one, I would just love to know in your practice, in your life right now, what is something that you're the most interested in or curious about or has your attention?
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. Um, let's see. Hmm. I'm doing a ton of series work right now. Like
Mm.
I have a lot of new series people. Um, a lot of my regular folks coming in, but um it seems like there's some sort of deepening happening with the series. And I'm feeling like what I'm needing to do is actually keep expanding more into the movement.
Mm. Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm really like I've been diving more into Dan's book and um Anita Bozer. I love the undulation book because I always bring like continuum and it's kind of funny, but I'm trying to sort of meld those two a little bit more for people
Mhm.
and bring a lot more movement in. I do a lot of movement anyway, but yeah, I think I would say that's going on. And then, it's always curious for me too, the people who are so sensitive, where it's so rare that someone has maybe something else pop up when we're working. Like usually they go away feeling great, but sometimes something else will come in. And so that's always makes me really curious too. So I've had
Mhm.
someone, just one of those people lately in my practice. So yeah.
I love
So
it.
yeah, so I'd say a deepening in the series work. But I also recently took a class with Nilce Silvieri.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
she's a Spanish rolfer.
Yeah.
So I took a class with her late last year, and so that was really interesting. I still have to say I love how I work. Um, I don't know. I have such a passion for who we are and what we do, and I just think Joseph Heller was so ahead, again, another person who was so ahead of his time, and he's so brilliant, and he gave us such a great gift. So